What's going on, everyone? This is Real Sales Talk. This is Season 2, Episode 8, and we have the one and only Keenan. Keenan, how you doing lately?
I am good, my man. I am good. Thank you very much for having me.
You went to London recently, didn't you?
I went to London and Colombia within like 10 days of each other.
Holy cow.
I was on the road.
Holy cow. Good. Sounds like business is popping for you then.
Business is going well. You know, it's going well. Can't complain.
Cool. Well, tonight we've got a topic that's going to be centered around your book. The title that I gave tonight is Reinvent or Be Unemployed: Why the Modern Salesperson Must Evolve. And let me just, for those that are listening to the very first time, introduce my co-host, Henry. Henry, what's going on with you?
Nothing much, Sean. How are you doing?
Doing well. Do you have any exciting news to announce to the Real Sales Talk family?
Yeah, I guess this is a good time, Benny. So, Sean, as you know, I recently put in my 2 weeks at my current company, where I'm a sales rep for them, and going to be joining the family business, doing smart home and home automation, running sales and marketing for the company. So, pretty excited about that opportunity to take it to the next level. Father started it, and now my chance to help grow it. So, just
awesome.
Looking forward to learning from Keenan and all our other guests. It's been awesome.
Yeah,
congratulations, baby. Congratulations.
If you need a sales consultant, I know this cool guy named Keenan. He could probably help you out.
I appreciate it.
That's good.
So congrats, Keenan. Congrats, Henry, by the way. And why don't you just kind of take us into how people can engage with us tonight? If they've got questions, comments, how can people get those to us?
Yeah. So engagement is the same as always. It's going to be hashtag Real Sales Talk on Twitter is probably the best way for people to engage. As you guys know, I'm always watching that hashtag as we're going today. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Keenan or ask Sean or ask myself, just type in hashtag Real Sales Talk there, and we will respond. Also, after the show, you can feel free to use that hashtag as well. We're always paying attention to it. If you have guests that you'd like to recommend or anything of that nature, just let us know. And then on Twitter, I am at Talk to Henry J. Sean is at Sean M. Mitchell. And then Keenan, you're at
Keenan.
You're at Keenan?
Keenan. Yes.
I wasn't sure if you were at your website, but okay. At Keenan, nice and easy.
Yes.
Cool. So tonight, Keenan, super excited to have you on, and thanks so much for being willing to come back on after the last debacle, the blab debacle of 2016. Really appreciate you and your patience in coming back again.
No worries, man. It's all good. I got you.
Cool. Keenan has been a friend of mine for gosh, maybe a year and a half now. I got introduced to him by who was it? It was not Joe Conrath, but it was Nancy Narden. Nancy Narden was the one that originally introduced us. You're actually in the same city as I am, Denver, Colorado, but by way of Boston. So when we were thinking about having you on and what topic we wanted to kind of lead this with, the internet has really changed quite a bit, Keenan, and has changed the way salespeople do things. And so I'm really interested to know, and especially for those that aren't familiar with your book, Not Taught, what was the precipice? How did you come about this idea of Not Taught, and why was it important enough to write a book about it?
Well, the book is called Not Taught: What It Takes to Be Successful in the 21st Century. And I came across the idea to write the book by giving. There's a great book by Adam Grant called Give and Take, where he talks about that giving is the new key to success. And I think, unbeknownst to myself, I just proved his thesis, because a friend of mine had asked me to speak at the University of Denver graduate program he was teaching. He's an adjunct professor, and he said, "Hey, come in, I want you to talk to my class." I'm like, "All right, I'll do it." And I said, "What do you want me to talk about?" And he said, "I don't know." He goes, "Tell them what they need to know when they graduate." I'm like, all right, I could do that. So I sat down and I started this list of things that I think people needed to do when they graduated. And what I realized is like, wow, none of this was going on when I graduated. Like one of the ones, build a personal brand, right? Or stop creating content, or stop worrying about your degree. I mean, things like that. I was like, wait a minute, slow the roll here. This is stuff that just didn't exist when I graduated. So after giving that presentation, getting lots of accolades, and they really enjoyed it, for lack of a better word. I created a blog post about it and made really quick hits, and people really liked the blog post. So I said, you know what, I could turn each one of these things into chapters, expand them on them a little more, and then get to the reason why it's important. So when I give it to the kids, I just said, this is what you got to do when you graduate. I lengthened the book by digging into why. Why is it different, and what's going on? And that created the thesis that we moved from the industrial age to the information age, and that's changed the rules. But nobody's telling everybody the rules have changed. And so people are discovering it like yourself by themselves.
So you were at a university and you were talking about these things that have changed that no one's teaching. How was that accepted, especially from the professor? Was there any sort of contention there at all?
No, this one professor is super progressive, so not at all. I think the only one that slightly could have, but didn't with him, was the Screw Your Degree chapter. And, when I explain to him, it's like, it's not really don't go get knowledge. It's not don't know what you're talking about. It's just don't bet on the piece of paper. The piece of paper has very little value now. It's actually the knowledge that you can attain when you go to school. But no, it didn't at all. He actually loved it and ate it up.
So you actually have a chapter in your book about degrees, and I think you used the word screw the degree. So I think it's really interesting to see how information in the internet has really created this level playing field with information. So what is your opinion about degrees, and in to 2016? Are they necessary in order to be successful?
Okay, the answer is, generally speaking, no. There are certain fields where degrees are still fairly critical, right? Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you got to go to graduate school. In order to go to graduate school, you have to have an undergraduate degree. So there are certain fields that I'm not going to get into this mess about whether or not you should get a degree. But for most fields, for most of what most people do day to day, no, you don't need a degree. I mean, listen, a degree was created because back in the industrial age, the only place to get information was schools or libraries. No one would believe you if you told you spent 4 years going to the library 5 days a week to get it. You couldn't see the syllabuses or anything like that, so you didn't know what you were supposed to learn. So no one really believed you. So the piece of paper was proof, right? And so when we would take that piece of paper and say, hey, look, I can prove to you that I had access to the requisite courses, that I went here and I did what I was supposed to do. We needed that because there was no other way to prove it in the industrial age, right? And plus, during the industrial age, it started because we moved from the agrarian society where education was critical. When you wanted to move off the farm into a city, if you wanted to be successful moving from an agrarian society to an industrial society, education was key, and not everybody was educated. The literacy rate was fairly low, so it was a very different world back then. And so the degree, the actual degree, that piece of paper was valuable and meant something. But as we shifted into the industrial age, now you don't need it. Look, you have edX, Coursera, etc. That's Harvard and MIT's complete programs online for free. They don't give you the piece of paper, but if you want to learn and you want to study, just show up and take it. So what's in the cost of college now is so out of whack. If you go to a $25,000 a year school for 4 years, it's $100,000. In most cases, you'd be better off to take that $100,000, stick it into an account, let it earn 8% year over year, and that would outperform most people than if they got the job and what they could do with the job. So it's just not worth the money.
So, I mean, for someone who's fresh out of high school, looking at, okay, which direction do I go? I hear Keenan talking about how the information is readily available, and universities, like well-known universities, are giving this stuff away for free. I mean, what sort of conversation are you going to have with your daughters, your 3 daughters, about education? Will you let them decide on their own? At that point, will a college be completely non-existent? What do you see in the future for your 3 daughters?
Look, if my daughters want to go to college, I'll support them going to college. But my hope is they understand what they're getting themselves into, and there's a real reason why they want to go to college. I'm not against college. College was some of the best time in my life. I met some great people. It connected me with ideas and things that I probably wouldn't have gotten on my own, right? I mean, one of the things I like about college is it got me up and out of Boston and put me in an environment with other people, like-minded people. I went to the University of Colorado Boulder. This was an Ivy League, but it wasn't your local community college where all the saps who didn't want to do anything just went to say they were going to college, right? So there's a lot of benefit that I got out of that. So I'm not against college per se, but it's the degree. So if my daughters, if I say, what do you want to do, honey? I already asked them this question. What do you want to do, and what problems do you see in the world that you want to fix, right? And if you don't have to go to college to do those two things, then don't go, right? Go figure out another way to get involved. Go do an internship. Go get a job right away with whatever company or environment, or start a business. Shoot. If my girls have an idea, one of my girls keeps saying she wants to be a fashion designer. I'll give her the money to start a fashion design business before I send her off to college. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so I just think it depends what they want to do.
I think that's a really interesting. Go ahead, Henry.
No, I feel like we're going to go down a similar path. I was just going to say I think that's like a very interesting way of thinking about it. Like essentially, what you're telling your daughters to do is go because what it seems like what, at least in my opinion, what people are going to get these degrees for, like they go to college and they go to grad school, PhD, etc., because they want to be successful. But at the end of the day, what they're not thinking about is the value that they're going to create, right? And
yes,
I think
yes.
it seems like what you're telling your daughters is what's the value that you want to create in the world, and just go create the value, because at the end of the day, if you create value, you will then become successful. I saw this blog post today, and it was talking about that. It's like my generation, like the millennials, are the most educated generation ever, but the lowest paid for their education. And a lot of it's going back to what you're talking about, is that college isn't preparing people to create value for the world, so why am I going to pay you for it? Like, it just makes sense.
It's not that I guess the end result is colleges aren't creating value, but it's not because they've changed. It's because the world has changed, right? With the jobs that the colleges were created to create people for doesn't exist anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea that the problem now is people in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even the 50s, you went to college to get a job. Mm-hmm. And that was how it worked. But unless you're going to go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and go to get their MBA program so you can be hand-plucked by McKinsey or Ernst & Young, you don't need to go to college to get a job. You don't need to go to college to be good at a job or to bring value. So don't go to college to get a job. Go to college to acquire knowledge. If you say to yourself, look, I want to be a fashion designer and I want to go to college because I want to learn how to be a fashion designer, and you get 99% of the way through and you're like, well, I can't learn anything else, you don't get the degree, who cares? I mean, other than the fact, you paid for it, you might as well get it, but it's go for the knowledge, don't go for the job. How many people, I went for poli-sci. I got nothing to do with poli-sci, so technically speaking, as it relates to my career, my education was useless. Useless. Now, I kick people's ass on Facebook when they want to start talking about politics, but that's a whole different story.
So would your money have better spent, the $100,000, by putting it into a business? And even if it failed, do you think that you would have gotten more out of that money that you spent in college versus sticking it out and going through the traditional route?
That's a great question, and I think for me personally, no, for two reasons. One, I started college in 86, 87, right? So there was really no internet yet. There was really no PC. When I started college, we still did, oh my gosh, most of us were still doing papers on typewriters. By the time I got out of college, you weren't doing them on type. Like, I literally was that group of people that made the switch, right? Even if you didn't own a computer, you went to a computer lab and printed it out. But that's the cusp I was on. And so for me personally, I needed to mature. I needed a place where I could be acquiring knowledge and not expecting to pay bills the whole time. I took out school loans and stuff. So it was more of a personal development and growth process for me. By the way, I went for 2 years, left for 3 years, went back for 2 more years. So I didn't do it right away. And even when I finally left in 1995, I still didn't have my degree. I didn't get my degree until I was 43, 44. So the degree meant nothing to me. It didn't do anything for me. And so for me, it was an interesting time being on the cusp. For someone now with all the world at their hands, I would challenge them a little differently.
Yeah, like I really wonder, like for my kids, and your kids, Keenan, you know, like is that really the best way to spend? Let's just say it's $100,000. Is that the best way to invest $100,000 into each child? Could you get something like if you help them craft a business plan, help them with the business idea, and said, here, I'm going to give you $25,000 of that $100,000. Go make something of it, and when you have questions, come back to me and let me know, and I'll be happy to help guide you.
I mean, some people say yes. Obviously, it depends on your child, if they're entrepreneurial or not, right? It might make more sense for you to tell your kid to go travel, go live on their own, go smoke dope, whatever they want to do, but take the well, let's be honest, too, by the way, $100,000 is low end right now. That's low end, yeah. Right? So by the time our kids get there, we're easily talking $250,000 to $500,000 for a decent school, right? So you're much better off to take that money, tell them to go party in Europe, tell them to go live in a ski resort, tell them to go live somewhere, get it out of their system, do all that stuff. Take that, we'll say $250,000, put it into some sort of conservative 3, 5, 6%. If you're really good with your money, you can make it 7 or 8%, and just let it sit there. And that in itself, in most cases, will produce more over 30 or 40 years than whatever your son or daughter could do with a college degree in terms of income, right? So, I mean, if anything, you put it there until they grow up and then say, okay, here, now I've turned that $250,000 to $500,000 over the last 10 years, 12 years. You've gotten your right together. Okay, now do you want to start a business? I'll give you a little allowance. I mean, in many ways, it's sad to say, but in many ways, it's just as equally risky doing it that way as sending them to school.
Yeah. I think eventually, I mean, this is like crazy talk, but I can just see where technology is going. Like right now we have the technology, you know, on our phones, like the world's libraries. You can access almost any piece of information right now on your phone, but someday this will be, you know, in our brain. That may be crazy talk for some people, but I don't think that's too far out there. And so could we as humans be, and this may be a little bit off topic, but I just think it's an interesting thing to kind of dialogue about. Will our education?
If that's the case, right? You bring up an interesting point. Let's play this out. If that's the case, and we can put all the information in our brain to be accessed, then the winner are those people that have the ability to do something with the information faster than the next person. So right now it's about in that case it'd be about creative thinking. It would be about the ability to process the information faster, right? If we all have the access to the same information, then the winners are the people who know what information to call up, when to use the information, how to transpose or juxtapose different types of information, draw different conclusions. So that's a whole different skill set that you can't teach in school, right?
But isn't that where we are now, in a way, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, we all have the far majority of us have access to Google, which is the knowledge database, right, of the internet. Like, if you need to know anything, go there. Like, so I feel like you're kind of onto something there. Is that what you need to learn is the creative aspect of, okay, we all have the same, knowledge in front of us, but we can all come to different conclusions, and whose conclusion is going to be better is really what's important. It's like they teach, you teach somebody like the multiplication table, 12 times 12. It's like, I have a calculator, man. I'm going to have a calculator for the rest of my life. I don't need to know 144 times 144. There's no reason for me to memorize that because I will always calculate it. I don't need to know, there's a lot of things I learned in school. Everybody, all of us learned, like all the states, all the, capitals and all that stuff. There's a lot less of a reason to teach that stuff today because it is so accessible. It's really that creativity that I feel like is so
Time out. Now, with the math and the calculation, when you're talking big numbers, I'd agree, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking things like geography, history, when you're talking things like that, not so fast, my friend, because all it takes is one person to change the capital of South Dakota, which I believe is Pierre, or that's North Dakota, I would screw that, but change it to something else, right? And if nobody knows it, now it's different. So I believe, plus I talk about contextual knowledge. When you know that stuff, it sits in the back of your brain, and when you need it, you can recall it. So that type of information, I'm a huge fan that we all know, because that helps you. Here, I'll give you a quick example. How did Dyson invent the vacuum cleaner? Or not the vacuum cleaner, but his vacuum cleaner. He recognized that the way the vacuum cleaners worked at the time required a bag. And when the air sucks through the bag, it sucks up the dust. What happens is the dust starts clogging the bag, which then affects the suction, right? So he said, this can be better. And he was trying to figure out ways to do it, but he said, you know what? I remember as a kid or as a young man, I worked in a sawmill, and they had all kinds of dust. And what they did with the sawmill is they had a cyclone thing, because you couldn't use a bag for sawdust. It was just too much and it was too big. They had a cyclone type of thing. And he said, wait a minute, I could figure out a way to turn a cyclone for a giant sawmill into vacuum size and replicate it in a vacuum. That's called contextual knowledge. He could not have invented the Dyson without that contextual knowledge. And that's why I hear you, but that's why I push so many people to learn and read and read and read and read, because we undervalue the power of contextual knowledge and our ability to solve problems that we think at the time are unrelated.
So I agree with you on that. I'm talking more about memorization for memorization's purpose. I think if you are learning something, like for example Dyson, he was learning something in a sawmill because he was actually, I don't know the story, but he was doing something in that sawmill, so therefore he had to learn that knowledge. Later on in life, he was doing something else. That knowledge came, it was valuable. But if you're just learning, I don't even know, all the streets in your city for no reason, that does not apply to anything that you're doing today. I think it's the difference between just-in-time knowledge.
I am a huge fan of learning for learning's sake, and we can disagree on this one, but I read all kinds of crazy stuff. I read how they built the Intercontinental Railroad. I read how the Oxford Dictionary came out, and 99.9% of the time, I can never use that information, but I promise you every once in a while I can pull it out. And if it does nothing else, it elevates my level of intellect around other people. That gives me a level of credibility. Like, wow, that's a smart cat. I don't know how the hell he knew that. Right? So I just don't believe in, because you can't anticipate when you could possibly need the information. You cannot anticipate it. So I believe learn for learning's sake. You can't hurt.
So how do you take that? How do you take it? Because you mentioned in another one of your chapters about building a personal brand. So let's take the average high school student who's freshman year, sophomore year, starting to plan for college. What does that 14, 15-year-old student do to start building a brand that will give them the option to either go to college or start a business on their own, or do whatever they want, really?
Okay, that's a tough one because you picked an interesting age, right? So here's the answer. If you know what you want to do, then let's say you know you want to be in sales, or you know you want to be a dancer, you know you want to be a coach, you know you want to be a newscaster, whatever it is, I don't really care. If you know what you want to do, then you start building a brand around that identity as soon as you can, right? As quickly as possible. If you don't know, then I say you build a brand around something that's important to you, or a way that you can deliver value and make a difference in the world. Like my 10-year-old daughter, I'm divorced, my ex and I don't get along very well, and she said she couldn't be on Instagram anymore. Well, I'm a social media junkie. I understand the power of it. So I said, not so fast at my house. I said, you can be on it, but you can't just be on it to post selfies and stuff like that. You got to figure out a way to create an Instagram account that delivers value to your friends. And that means a selfie once in a while, that's fine, but it has to be value. So I said to her the other night, I said, why, as a 10-year-old girl, why don't you start an Instagram account that talks about what it's like growing up to be a girl and the messages you're given, and about bullying, or about how you're expected to be an athlete or not be an athlete. Like, why don't you do that? You can start reading. I can help you. And I said, as a 10-year-old, if you do that well, you'll have a massive following in no time. So that was my advice to her. Now, I don't think she's going to do. She sat there shaking her head, and then she went to her mom's house, got caught playing on Instagram, taking selfies. So I don't think she's ready. But that was my advice to her, and that would be my advice to somebody else.
I like the idea. I like the idea of that, and I think it's really important to. Of course, I'm not at that. My kids aren't at that age. They're 3.5 and 11 weeks old. But I think it's important to kind of push the status quo, because the status quo says, oh, you're a teenager. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you you know what you're going to do, after you finish high school or college. But like you're saying, Keenan, why not help them develop whatever it is that they're interested in? Pokemon Go, why not create some content, that provides value to other people that are interested in that?
Yep. Good call. Exactly. Now that you say that, I should have told her maybe she should have done one on how to be musically expert. That would have been a good one because she loves musically. So I guess I could have told her to do that. But I tell anybody who doesn't know what they want to do, find something you really enjoy and teach people how to do what you do, and you'll build a brand and a following.
So take that idea and let's just kind of fast forward from teenager to, let's say, late 20-year-old or early 30-year-old, has a sales career, has been successful at a particular company. What do you say to that particular salesperson who says, I've been successful, why do I need to build a brand?
It's something that Aurora, Colorado Springs managers are already doing.
Feedback from somebody. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Keenan, you watching TV?
No, it was on freeze or pause and it popped off. So hold on, I can fix it. Hold on. Sorry, guys. All right. Yep. Can you hear me?
So yeah. So
Okay.
did you get the question, or do I need to repeat it?
I did. No, I got it. It's good. So, look, the first thing I would say is anybody that says, I got it, I've been successful at 28 years old is a clown. Because you're 28 years old, and I don't care how successful you've been, there's so much more you can learn, there's so much more you can do, and so you're being a clown, so stop it. Secondly, if you are successful and nobody knows, in 2016, 20, 2025, you're not successful. That's all there is to it. I don't care what you want to try to say, so, because unlike a long time ago, when you were successful in your business, people told people and it was okay only to be known in your business, and you had a resume, and nowadays people expect that the people who are good are known for being good, and they have social media presences, and you don't have to tell them, you're expected to prove it. So if you sit there, I was 125% of quota, 200% of quota for 6 years in a row, and I did it in my quiet little community, and the only people in my community or my industry know it, good for you. Then don't ever expect to leave that industry, because if no one knows it outside, it doesn't exist.
Yep, I agree. And I think it's really interesting that I mean, myself included, when I look back, I mean, even like a year ago, I spent a lot of effort investing into building the brand of my company at the time, and the company that I was working for, rather. And I really put off building the personal brand. I did it haphazardly and casually, but really not to the effort that I'm putting in right now. And I can just see the attention, just the attention that it garners by creating content on a regular basis. And I've had, I'm trying to think back, like I've had 3 or 4 companies approach me this year in 2016 and say, hey, do you want to work for me? And I think it's just all because I'm putting out content, and there's nothing special about that. I mean, I think I'm a pretty darn good salesperson, but I think it's, putting the content out there really is the new resume.
It removes the risk, right? If
Totally.
I've got a resume in front of me of some guy or girl who said they're 200% a quota and did President's Club and they're this, that, and the other thing, okay, that's kind of nice. It looks interesting. But then I have someone else who's done the same thing, maybe only 150%, and they missed President's Club one year, but they have a YouTube channel where they break down sales processes, overcoming objections, how they talk about how they, whatever position, how they talk about how they prospect, how they engage with CEOs, how they deliver messages, and I can listen and see them. It's a no-brainer. The risk has been squeezed out. All the questions I would ask in the interview, they've already answered, not under the gun, not trying to give me some I know them. So yeah. It's yes, you rim the risk out, and you can demonstrate how good you are, and it opens all kinds of opportunities. If you're one of those selfish people that believes you don't have to do it, good, fine, don't do it. But the opportunities it creates for you are tenfold. So be selfish then and do it, because it's going to get you more exposure. More exposure gets you more influence gets you more followers get you more eyeballs, and therefore, next thing you know, you get more people interested in calling you up like they're calling you up, Sean.
So you're speaking from experience, I know, Keenan, because at one point you were working for a company, you started creating content while you were working at that company, and then can you kind of take it from there and kind of, for the people that are listening, kind of script out, okay, let's take the salesperson who's not doing a great job at building personal brand, use your own experience, Keenan, to kind of script out how you would recommend them starting on that path of building personal brand.
So I'm going to use me and another person because it's easy when people say, "Oh, it's easy for you. You started 8 years ago." 8 years ago, right? Well, no one was blogging 8 years ago, so that was easy, right? So I definitely I saw it earlier. I got in earlier. So I started a blog in 2009, and for 2 years, every single day for 2 years, I wrote on that blog. And I just paid a lot of attention to what I was doing at the office, the people I was hiring, the problems I was facing, the screw-ups, and I just blogged about it all, right? And little by little, over time, I started building a following, and that following turned into a sales guy consulting, and that turned into a sales guy recruiting, and that turned into the book, and it just blew from there. So, but I started, like I said, 8 years ago, and started the company 5 years ago in 2011. But so I want to talk about this cat that I just found yesterday named Morgan Ingram. Okay?
Yeah.
This cat has exploded onto the scene only because he started an SDR channel. So he's a sales development rep. So that's the new way to get into sales today. When I started in sales, there was no SDR role. You had to basically start with a company that sold small stuff that wasn't expensive and work your way up company to company. There was no in-company path, right? You couldn't just get into IBM or Oracle and sell multi-million-dollar things. You had to come from the outside and work your way up. So anyways, Morgan started the SDR Chronicles, Sales Development Chronicles, YouTube channel. I think he's only got like 10 videos, maybe 11. They're like 2 or 3 minutes long, but he's already got people's attention. He got on my radar in less than 2 months, and I was like, this is good stuff. And SDR should pay attention to this. So I blogged about him this morning. Here's a guy who went from zero to hero in weeks. Now, look, his boss loves him. People are talking about him. I don't know how this story's going to end, but I can tell you he is now cruising down a nice path.
That's cool. We got to get him on the show. We got to get him on and interview him because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, so check him out. I think it's SDR Chronicles on YouTube. I've never met him. Matter of fact, he sent me a LinkedIn request saying, "Hey, I saw you speak at one of our events. I work for Terminus. I really love your stuff. I read something. I'd love for any help you could provide me." Very nice guy. He said, "Here's my YouTube channel." I didn't go look right away. I was like, I get these things all the time. Super nice guy. I'll get to it later. A day and a half later, in my tweet stream, he comes up again. Someone goes, "Oh, Keenan, you got to check this guy out. He's cool." And then a little while later, I started another one. Okay, 3 times. Someone's trying to tell me something, so I went and checked him out.
Now you got to check him out.
Yeah, so I got to check him out. So your question was, how does someone do it? Look, if you're in a job, you chose that job. You chose it. No one made you take that job. You said, I'm going to be a sales rep, I'm going to be an SDR, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be an accountant, I'm going to be a babysitter, I'm going to be a dog walker. I don't give a damn what you chose. You chose it. So my assumption is you chose it because it's what you want to do. So my assumption from there is if it's what you want to do, you might as well be damn good at it. You didn't choose it to be average. So if you chose to be really good at it, then go be good at it and start talking about it. Talk about it on a blog. Talk about it on LinkedIn. Talk about it on YouTube. Talk about it on a podcast. I don't care. But go start talking about it and help other dog walkers, help other accountants, help other salespeople, and I promise you, you'll have a brand that will help you build your career.
Can you get into some of your specific strategies, though? Like I can hear the person saying, okay, I get it. I know I need to, and just jump in and start creating stuff, but maybe shed some light on maybe some of your strategies, like you put stuff on the calendar, how do you come up with ideas, like kind of script that out a little bit.
So I think the first thing I would tell people is get in your head and ask yourself, how do you do your job, right? Like I think a lot of people just simply start typing, and I get it, just get going, but I think the thing that helped me the most was I really did an assessment of my job. Like, what does it mean to be a dog walker? What are the challenges with dog walking? What are the things people don't think about when it comes to dog walking? What are some of the things that people still struggle with that you figured out? Like, what are some of the hacks to dog walking? Like, how do I get 4 dogs, 2 big ones and 2 little ones, and pick up the poop at the same time, and make sure they're getting enough exercise, and which routes do I take, and how do I pick up the dogs in a specific order? I mean, see what I'm doing? I'm just thinking about the job in how to make it better. And then I think, well, how does a dog walker get their clients? Most people try the web, but what I found is you should do this, this, and this. So you could just start thinking about the job, and every time you think about something unique about the job, just think about putting how in front of it. How to get clients as a dog walker. How to walk how to walk big dogs and small dogs at the same time without anybody getting killed. How to avoid getting wrapped around the leash, right? I mean, just start there. If you simply start with how to XYZ, that's you can't lose. Even if people make fun of you because all you say is how to, who cares? Because what you're doing is you're teaching people, and that's what they want. That's what creating content is about. It's about teaching people and sharing the ideas and experiences you have to help other people get better. Any good blog, any good podcast, any good YouTube channel that's not for entertainment purposes, anytime you're creating content for a brand, it should simply be about educating people on how to get better at something. And after that, it's up to you.
So how do you think about like the difference between making content versus about like the job that you do versus like the product that you sell? Do you think like the product that you sell stuff should be left to the marketing department of your organization, or is that something like a salesperson should probably be doing as well?
No, do both. Do both. Look, when I was blogging, right, I don't know, I'm probably full of crap here, but I did close to 712 blog posts. I know it was over 700 in the first year. So I think I was averaging like 6.5, right? So, a week. And it gets to be a lot. Like, you can't be that narrow or you'll run out of ideas. I mean, the truth of the matter is I only blog about 2 times a week now. 1, because I'm super busy, but 2, I've run out of ideas, man. I mean, like, I'm so glad account-based marketing is coming out and people are talking about this, so I'm getting more, okay, I can start doing some more stuff. But I was running out of, I mean, you can only blog about so much stuff, and I don't know how people like Anthony and Reno do it. But so one blog post could, perfect example. Let's go back to the dog walker. I have no idea where this idea came from as a dog walker, but how about this one, right? 5 things to notice or to tell the difference between a good leash and a bad leash, right? So, so now I'm talking about the product. But guess what? If you're a dog walker, this is a good leash. You can say that you want to avoid these types of leashes. They have a tendency to twist. They have a tendency to snap. They have a tendency to fray. I don't know. They're made of this. I don't know. I'm not a dog walker. But, okay, there you go. There's the product, right? Now I went to, like I told you before, I can talk about marketing dog walking. I can talk about what to do when an aggressive dog comes up on you and you've got 4 dogs in your hand, right? So now how do you control 4 dogs if one of them is aggressive or there's a threat? That's another thing. If you immerse yourself in what you do, man, there's so many ideas, but don't be so narrow. Did that help?
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. There's only dog walkers watching. You really got your whole blog right down, so.
Right. I mean, look, if we go to sales, if we were to do sales, I mean, let's say you sell vacuum cleaners as a salesperson, right? You can talk first about how to sell vacuum cleaners and why it's unique selling vacuum cleaners, right? You can talk about who are the 3 ICPs or ideal customer profiles or ideal target customers when it comes to selling vacuum cleaners and what makes them different. You can talk about how to do a demo when doing a vacuum cleaner that ensures they buy. You can talk about the 10 things not to do when you're selling a vacuum cleaner, right? You can talk about the 3 upgrades that people should consider when trying to sell a vacuum. You can talk about, I mean, just going here. Yes, you see where I'm going? I mean, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I think you do a really great job, Keenan, at being consistent, knowing a little bit of your schedule. I mean, the fact that you're doing 2 a week is pretty impressive. So, I mean, how do you come up with your ideas personally? Are you just kind of feeling it out, like whatever you see people talking about, or what sort of questions you get?
I try to read. I try to read as much as I can. That helps a lot. Reading is, in the beginning for sure, reading was my best friend. As a matter of fact, in the very beginning, I would go read Seth Godin, Fred Wilson. They weren't even just sales blogs. Fred Wilson, Seth Godin. Who did I read from a sales blog? We'll go with Partners in Excellence, Dave Brock. We'll go with Anthony, Jill Conrath. I would just read all their blogs, and sometimes I would disagree with them and be like, let me tell you why Dave's crazy, but not exactly like that. Other times that would spark an idea, and I would riff. So I wouldn't necessarily have to blog with they were writing about it. It would trigger something. I was like, ooh, I could write about that. Right? Other times I'd be it'd be in work, and we'd be talking about something. Or I'd be yelling at some rep, or some rep would do something stupid. Or I'd watch a customer make a mistake. I'd watch how a rep close the deal. Like, ooh, that was good. And I'd make a little note, and I'd come home and I'd blog about it. So it's a mindset. It's a mindset that says I'm constantly on the lookout for things of value that I can share with other people. That's really what it was. So I guess the bottom line was reading was the biggest one for me. I had a whole blog, what do you call them, Feedly. I had a Feedly. Still do it. I just don't have a chance to read it as much. And I had one section of just sales blogs, and another section of reads I like. And I would read through all those and take notes in the markers or save it Instapaper, and I'd blog about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just got to educate yourself. Educate yourself. And the more educated you are in your space, the better you're going to be at creating content.
And going off reading a bit, outside of blogs, any books that you like? I mean, obviously yours, obviously Not Taught book is great, place for people to start. Any other books that you recommend to people often that doesn't have to be sales books, just anything that you like and would recommend?
So my favorite author, and I moved away from him for a little while, and I regret it now because he's a damn genius, and he's on my target list to sit down and have dinner with one of these days, is all the Malcolm Gladwell books. Malcolm Gladwell is who I'd want to be when I grow up. He's a contrarian. Sean, you read a lot of my stuff. A lot of what I try to do is challenge the status quo, or challenge things that have been accepted as the norm. He just does it at a level that is so far beyond any skill set that I've been able to develop to this point. So all his books I absolutely love. His podcast out called Revisionist History is a must listen to. So if you're an intellectual, curious person, read all Malcolm Gladwell stuff. I also am a huge fan of one of the most influential books in my entire life as far as being successful is Ramshawn and Larry Bossi's Execution. That book will really force you how to be a leader, well, a manager, I should say, to a certain degree, but then also an executor. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has them. Where we fall down is executing and forcing people to learn how to, execute and figure out what it takes to actually get something from idea to delivery, especially in a large organization with a lot of moving parts, is no small task. And he calls out, it's an old book, but he calls out some brilliant people who were worth millions of dollars who failed miserably because they were unable to execute on their big ideas because they just didn't understand what execution took. So those two, and then of course all the sales books. Look, Jill Conrad's Snap Selling is one of my favorites. Fanatical Prospecting by Jim Blount's a fantastic one. Mike Wernberg's, both of his. What I like about Mike, I love Mike. He's a smart guy, so isn't to take anything from him. But if you've never been in sales, read it because you'll learn all kinds of stuff. But if you've been in sales for a while and you read Mike's books, you're not going to be like, oh, this is all new. But he does it with, he says, wow, I haven't been doing a lot of this. I moved away from this, and he gets you back to reality, snaps you back in place. So that's what I really like about his books there, is he snaps you back in place. So those are some.
We actually had Mike on the show a couple of weeks ago to talk about his book. We talked about more the context of Sales Management Simplified, that book. Yeah. But I mean, the way that he communicates it is it's simple. It's simple yet profound.
Yes, I love Mike. Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, for sure. We had Jeb on as well, maybe about a month ago. I love those guys. Super
good.
giving.
You're good. I couldn't get Jeb to get on my show.
Really?
He's just like we could not make the timing work, and he's like, I am just too busy. So I was like, all right, I pass.
That was Henry.
I think he was traveling right after we got it done. He was like, yeah, I'm going out of the country for 3 weeks or something like that. So we had one chance, and it just happened to work out. Yeah, it worked out well. And he helped us get Mike from there. So.
Yep.
Well done.
Yeah, pearl selling right there.
What are some of the? I mean, we're coming to a close here, Keenan, and I'm interested to get some of your insight into sales acceleration tools, software. What are you seeing your clients utilizing to help their sales teams accelerate the sales process and close deals?
Wow, it varies. It really does vary. I see everything, obviously, from the. I hear a lot about SalesLoft. They've really done a good job of getting themselves put in there on the from prospecting perspective. Their cadence tool, obviously, a lot of the email stuff from Yes, we're in tout out. I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm starting to see a lot of things come up like Datanize, Sixth Sense. I'm seeing those data-oriented sales acceleration tools starting to pop up. Oh my gosh.
Where do you think the biggest opportunity is then? Like when you look at where are the gaps in those sales tools, is there an area that no one's really playing in or doing that's created a product?
You know, this is probably an area that I need to get better at and improve on. I have never really been a techie. Like, I'm a huge skier, as you well know. And if you ask me about the skis coming out of the technology, I'm not very good at it, never have been. I mean, look, I don't ski on crappy skis, but, you know, I get one pair of skis that are really good, and I ski the hell out of them for 2 years, and I buy another pair, and I let the guy tell me what's new. You know, I've never really been a techie. So when it's same thing here, I am definitely a laggard when it comes to the tools, unless somebody catches me at the right spot, like Bomb Bomb is where we met, right? If you catch me at the right spot at the right time, like, oh, I get it, and I'm in.
Yeah.
But I just don't have the time to keep up. I don't have the time to research them all, and so I'm not really good at that. But I guess if I had to answer your question, I think I would stay in the area of data, right? Getting data of not only inside data, in other words, personalized data. It says, Jim, when you make these many calls, or when you do these types of things, or when you send these types of emails, you perform better than when you do these, right? So customized sales feedback data, I don't really think anybody's gotten into that space yet. I think that's the real win. So I don't need a manager telling me I'm doing a crappy job, right? If someone can actually take a look at my tout apps templates or emails and say, oh, wow, Jim, these ones perform the best. And, oh, by the way, when you sent them at 8 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock, performed the best. And, oh, by the way, when you made 35 calls that week as opposed to 40 calls, you did this, here's a new thing you should do, right? So I don't have to go look at it all, but it can recognize everything I'm doing and start prescribing approaches for me. I think there's some opportunity there, but, you know, that's just me, you know, rapping.
I went to Sales 2.0 conference in San Francisco a few weeks ago and ran into Nancy and Anthony Iannarino. It was the first time I met both of them in person, so it was really, really cool to just kind of chat it up with them. But one of the kind of prevailing themes of the conference was like machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I think it's probably in similar line with what you're talking about, Keenan, which is software that, yeah, I know. You've got a pulse on it, you know. So, you know, like there was a lot of talk about software that kind of thinks for you as a salesperson, or maybe even thinks for the sales manager as well, and just makes the job easier. So you know, when you need to reach out to someone based on previous communication with them. Okay, it's 2:22 in the afternoon. You got a hold of them at this time 2 weeks ago. Why don't you pick up the phone and give them another phone call, for example? So smart software, I think, is you know, the software right now in the sales space is good, but I think where it's going to go is thinking for you, doing some of that hard work for you so that you can just kind of, you know, let the cream rise to the top so you can just kind of scoop it out.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Sean, just to piggyback off that, we had Adam Honig on a while back from Spiro, and I see that kind of going in that direction a little bit with, you know, the automation that or the intelligence that they're putting into their product in terms of send this guy an email, you haven't sent him an email in a while, you know, this is probably the topic that you should send him an email about, and things like that. And, you know, as they integrate with the phone more, I can imagine that kind of even going even further.
I think you guys are right, and I love all that. I want to say this, though, and I want every sales manager to hear me, and I want every salesperson to listen to me, and I want every sales guru to listen to me. All of this is awesome, but if you start to lose the skill of deal strategy, of messaging, you're done. Okay, and I'm already seeing it. I spend a lot of time coaching salespeople, and they don't understand how to find the true intrinsic motivators. They don't understand what they're selling. And what I mean by that, you put this to a test, Sean. You go to a salesperson and say, what are you selling? 9 out of 10 times they'll say the product. If they don't say the product, and that means they suck. If they don't say the product, they'll say something very remedial, like efficiency, or speed to market, or more revenue. Okay, that's a little better than the product, but no, it's not very good. right? So we keep too many salespeople aren't learning or are losing the ability to actually manage and run the sale in a effective and sophisticated way because everybody's too focused on all the tools.
Where do you think that, for lack of a better word, laziness comes from? Like, is that being too dependent upon inbound leads and inbound marketing, or where does that come from?
I think it comes from a couple of things. I think primarily it comes from the division or the
separation.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you very much. Yes, the separation of the sales roles, right? When I started selling, you did it soup to nuts. I had to take out the yellow pages or the book of lists, and I had to go down the book of lists. I had to find people that looked like I think they might buy, so you started creating this ideal customer profile in your head. No one gave it to you. You didn't sit in a room for a week trying to figure it out, right? It was trial and error. Then you had to figure out what messages resonated with them to get them on the phone. Then you had to figure out what messages resonated to get them to give you a second chance. There were no demos. You had to mail stuff or go out there and sit in front of them. So then you had to pay attention and see what did they respond to, what were their reactions. There was no pass up to someone else and go back and do it. You had to learn to develop deal strategies based on how you engaged them in the beginning, based on what you heard, based on how they reacted. These deal strategies had to tie to the intrinsic motivators, to the other stakeholders. So you had the whole thing. Right now, you don't have, it's starting to be separated, and they give stuff to you, and it's made easier. And I think we're just forgetting. And people, by the way, even back in the day, people weren't even very good at it. But at least they had to do it every day, so they were better than most. But I think it's a separation of all the different sales roles that is the leading symptom of it.
I can't remember which episode we talked about this, Henry, but this topic came up about bringing, or maybe it was another conversation, I can't remember, but bringing sales and marketing together and having them work on the same goal. Now, I know that's not like a new idea, but the idea that maybe you've got like Chief Revenue Officer who from there kind of organizes and moves the chess pieces, and they're all under the same umbrella. Are you hearing any people talk about that, Keenan? Like bringing those two back together?
Absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of that. And I'm a huge advocate. Sales and marketing should no longer be separate. And not only should they be in the same functioning group, in many cases, I want to see a lot of overlap. I want to see overlap from compensation. I want to see overlap from goals, the whole 9 yards. But what I'm talking about here, that's all macro. I'm talking micro. And this is what I mean by this. And I run this test, and I got to figure out how to do an ebook on it or something because it's so powerful, but yet no one's doing it. Go into anybody's CRM and go under an opportunity and look at that opportunity and ask the salesperson to show you where is the problem. What's their problem? What are they solving for, right? Or what are you selling? All different terms. And 9 out of 10 times they'll say something like, I'll make this up. They have 2 separate systems and they can't accelerate fast enough and they're losing to the competition, right? Well, that's what your product does. It solves for 2 separate systems and makes you more competitive. But then you go to another opportunity and you ask, what's the problem? And it looks exactly the same. So I say, okay, I'm going to cover these opportunities, and I want you to tell me which one is which one. And they can't. They can't because the problems they put in are so universal and nondescript that they don't really know. Yes, and the detail is what makes that sale special. So in selling to you, Sean, that detail may be that you lost money or you just lost a big deal or your thing is being, the systems you're using now are being, whatever they say when they go out, end of life, right? Where the other person that I'm selling this to, it may be they're not end of life at all, but they don't work very well or they're growing really fast and they don't support them anymore. Same solution can solve the problems, but the motivations are different. Your motivation, end of life, is different than their motivation, and so therefore my deal strategy is going to be very different. But most salespeople don't know how to do that. They sell the same horizontally. And that's what I'm talking about when I talked about going micro and people don't know how to sell anymore. They don't know how to do that, and the best salespeople win who can do that.
What do you think the percentage of salespeople that know how to do that are? Like when you look at the scope, are we talking only 5% really do that well, or is it larger?
5% or less. Or less.
That's where the magic's at.
That's the magic right there. And I'll sit down with some people that will have their arms crossed. I've been doing this forever. I'm at quota, and I can ask about 5 questions about a particular deal, and I will know instantly and eat them for lunch. Because if you're going to sit there and cross your arms with me when I'm trying to help you, I'm going to just beat you to a pulp and have to soften you up. Yes, and then if they got there and they nailed it, then I just tap my hat and I say, well done, young man. You know how to do this. Let's go teach the rest of the crew.
Awesome.
That's great, man. It's really cool. Henry, any closing questions for Keenan?
Well, I got to say, I want to know a little more about those, like, how do you dig, how are you, when you're talking to somebody, like, in that conversation, what are you digging in on? Like, how are you digging in to see if they got it or they don't? And that's really the last thing I wanted to kind of get a better idea.
That's a great question, phenomenal question, because it comes to the questions. 9 out of 10 times, it's about process. Okay, so give me, rather than me try to be ethereal about this, give me a particular company or product or something that you might want me to try, and I'll give you an example.
So I'll talk about like my product. So we sell disaster recovery software, and essentially high level, right? What we do is if you are, let's say, a bank, you run like your ATM software. If somebody makes an ATM transaction that writes to a server somewhere in the back room. What we're doing is as that write happens to that server in the back room, we replicate it somewhere else so that if you lose this entire data center, you have that data over here,
Perfect.
and that application can run at the other side as well.
This is a perfect example. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a lot of time asking, how do you do disaster recovery today?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more I know about how you do it today, the more information I can learn to see if I can do it 1 time better, 2 times better, 6 times better, 10 times better,
Yep.
right? And if I ask a lot of questions, not it's sales questions, but really business analysis questions that talk about, I'm going to make this up, but bear with me. Mr. Banker, tell me a little bit about your disaster recovery. Currently now, how do you do disaster recovery? They'll give me an answer. I'll say, okay, fantastic. You talk about writing to another server. Can you tell me about those type of service? Can you tell me about the HTTP transport service use? Can you tell me how you do this? Can you tell me how you do this? What happens when this happens? What happens about redundancy? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And as they go, I'm formulating an assessment with how good their disaster recovery is. And if I come to the conclusion, wow, they're really good, I can only improve on this by like 5%, I tip my hat and say, you know what, I can't help you. You do a fantastic job. But if I realize that I can do 10 times better, I take all that information and I start walking backwards. I say, okay, you remember how you explained to me that you use, again, I'm making shit up, HTTPS to transfer this? Well, you understand that the security problems with that are high. The ability to hack into that is very high. It creates these types of problems and puts your customers at risk. 1, are you aware that when you do this, this happens? Are you aware when you do this, this happens? So therefore, if we could eliminate some of those things, do you think that is something that would be valuable to you? Current state, future state. Huge gap. The bigger the gap, the better. And you're just basically saying where you are today is subpar to where you could be tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to talk about where you could get tomorrow and how that affects your business?
Gotcha. Yeah, that is the sale. That's how it goes. I mean, that's exactly pretty much what we're doing. I'm doing every day. So I mean, just off that little bit, you pretty much got it down pat. So.
Yeah. So the only thing I say to people is I meet a lot of people say they do that every day. I challenge you to challenge yourself to see how far into their processes you can go, and to go how far into their world you can go. A lot of salespeople say they do it, and they do, but if I sit and listen to them, they go about 2 layers. They go about 2 layers deep. But they can't go 3, 4, 5 layers deep, and they can't go 3, 4, 5 rings out. So in other words, if I talk to you about security, right, and you're like, oh, yeah, that would be bad, then I can say, well, tell me about we both know that there are federal mandates around security. Tell me about your compliance with those federal mandates. Are you aware of, I'm making this up again, but mandate 6 or bill 627.3 requires that when you do these things, this happens. Have you had trouble meeting those mandates? We meet them, but it's a huge problem. You have to report on them. You have to report on them. Yes, we do, and our reporting takes us 8 months because we have to go through the logs one by one. So now you see what I'm going? I'm going past. I'm not going to what your product does anymore. Now I'm going to the second layer impacts of your product. in the organization. Most salespeople wouldn't know that they had compliance issues. Most people wouldn't know that in order part of that compliance is reporting, and that reporting can take 8 months. They hire a bunch of people who sit in a freaking room for 8 months. They burn all this money. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
A whole new layer that most people don't touch.
Yeah.
Get that low. If you're that low, good for you, baby. You're damn good.
Appreciate it.
Love it, man. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, Keenan. Really, really appreciate you coming on. And for those that like what they're hearing from you, either business or salesperson, how can they find you, first of all? And then how can they get your book, Not Taught?
You can get Not Taught on Amazon. Thank you very much. You can go to my website, salesguy.com. You can find me every way sideways there. My email's right there. You can click on a link to Amazon. So I'm easy. Salesguy.com, Keenan on Twitter, or if you just run Jim Keenan on Google, I think I'm the whole first 2 or 3 pages or something. So I'm easy to find.
Nice. Which is a part of your book. Are you? What happens when you Google yourself? Right. I think you talk about that too.
Yep. Absolutely. You better be found when someone Googles you.
For sure. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Keenan, and all the best. And we'll have to connect and get some lunch sometime soon.
Would love that. Thank you. Was this helpful? Was it what you were looking for?
Absolutely. 100,000%. Yes. Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, you guys. So we'll just a couple of things to wrap up. So we won't be doing one this Sunday, Real Sales Talk. We'll take a break, and then we'll be back on it on the 21st. I don't know what Henry and I are going to talk about, but we'll figure that out and then let you know as soon as possible. If you love what you're hearing, send us a review on iTunes. I think you can also do that on Stitcher. You can also watch this over again on YouTube as well. So thanks, and make it a great night.
We're going, guys.